Hi guys, are you interested in starting your garden seeds this year, but you don't have a grow light set up and you're really not sure what to choose for it? In this video, I'm going to share with you a variety of considerations you need to think about before you invest in equipment. And I'm also going to share with you what I've done here in my own grow room. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim, and let's get started. So the first consideration is going to be your space. Where are you going to put the grow light set up? Is it going to be in a main area of your home, or is it going to be in a side room or basement? Those might play into what type of shelving unit you get. I highly recommend the wire shelving unit. It has a lot of advantages, both from hanging the lights as well as just the overall air circulation to help keep the seedlings healthier. But if it's going to be in a main living area, you may want to have something that's more furniture-like that fits your aesthetic and your style. So it's something to consider. As far as the actual footage spacing, or the actual area that you have for the grow light setup, there are a wide variety of widths of shelving units from 1 foot up to 8 feet, as well as the lights. They will also fit that. And you can also get short ones or taller ones like I've got here. So there's a lot of options and variety with regard to the actual shelving structures. So the next consideration, and probably the most important one, is the type of lights that you get. You do not need official grow lights that are hundreds of dollars. You can get shop lights that fit the space that you have that are high intensity. You do need high intensity. But regular shop lights work. I have LED shop lights here that are not listed as full spectrum, but I saw online that they do have some full spectrum just like this that are the same price. So it's something that you really want to look at. If you can get full spectrum light, the better, which I think these really are. They're just not marketed that way, because I've got a lot of tomatoes and peppers growing up here that got fruit and flowering and fruit. So I think I have full spectrum light here. But with full spectrum, you have your red, your green, and your blue light. Your red light is for seed germination, root development, flowering, and fruiting. Your blue light level, that spectrum, is for healthy foliage growth. And your green light is not quite as important, but it tends to get deeper into the plant, helping the foliage photosynthesize better. So it's really important. If you can get full spectrum, we do that, but definitely high intensity LEDs are the way to go. So then with LED lights, there are two factors you need to consider. How bright are they, which is going to be your lumen factor, and what color light are they, which is going to be your Kelvin. Seedlings need at least 2,500 to 3,000 lumens of light for 14 to 16 hours per day. If you do have a 2,500 to 3,000 lumen light, though, you're going to need to keep them about 3 inches away from the top of the plant. If you go with something that's a higher lumen, like this 5,000 lumen light that I have, I start with it about 8 inches from the plant and don't have to move it as often. If you're using a lower lumen light, you're going to have to adjust it up as the plants grow much more often. So I really, really like these. And what the lumens is the number of photons that are being released down to the plant. So how many of the light particles are being created by this bulb that get down to the plant. The more photons there are, the higher this can be. And you really do want to be careful. Don't go over 10,000 lumens, because then you're just going to get crispy, crunchy plants, which is not a good thing. But again, at least 2,500 to 3,000 lumens. Mine are 5,000, which is definitely my recommendation and preference. No more than 10,000 lumens. So for the kelvins, you need to look at something between 5,000 and 6,500 Kelvin. The closer to 6,500 Kelvin they are, the more like daylight, regular, natural, outside daylight they are. It's still not enough. It's still nothing like what the sun does, which is why we will have to harden these plants off when we are getting ready to put them out. We'll have to slowly introduce them to the outside, because the sunlight is so much stronger. That's why when you have plants in the garden and the seed packet, they'll say 6 to 8 hours of sun. It will say 6 to 8 hours of sunlight for a full sun plant. We have to keep our lights on for 14 to 16 hours to even get marginally close to that. To summarize, 2,500 to 3,000 lumens as a minimum, no more than 10,000. My recommendation is 5,000 lumens. And then a light that is 5,000 to 6,500 Kelvin. My preference is for 6500 Kelvin. So I've had these lights for about 2 years and they are doing beautifully. So we've talked about your space, so where you're going to have it in your home, how much room you have. We talked about your budget, we talked about your lights. Let's talk about some of the extras that probably are really good to have. You can do without some of them, but I probably would. So I have 2 wire shelving units here, and what I have for fans are these stationary fans that I clip to the post, which makes it really easy. So twice a day, usually in the morning before I leave for work and in the evening when I get back, I will shift where they are pointing. So one time it'll be up high, another time it'll be low. Up high, low, crisscross, so that the air circulation is moving. The reason you want air circulation, one, is to help the seedlings be healthier, so you have less chance of dampening off algae growth and other fungal issues. It also makes the plant stronger. Right now, these are very cosseted plants. They're very, very, perfect environment. They're not being rained on. They're not being hit by the wind. So we want to strengthen them up. And a little bit of air circulation indoors now, while they're growing, while they're very young, will help the base of them become stronger so that they will survive more readily once we put them outside. So a fan is an absolute must. Oscillating fans also work great, but with my setup, it worked better for me to have these repositionable fans. So it's worked really, really well. I have to say this year, I haven't been overwatering, so it's been perfect. And that leads into the next one, is a dehumidifier. Now, it is the end of January. We are just getting ready to get into the main event for seed starting. This coming weekend, I'll be starting a lot of peppers and a few other things. So this will get full of plants. The more plants you have, the more you're watering, the more humidity you'll have in your room. So it may be a good idea to get a humidifier. They have small ones. I put one on the screen that I have and link everything below. But it helps take that humidity out so your room isn't quite as moist. And that again helps to reduce the amount of dampening off and algae growth. So it's a good protection for the plants. So the next consideration is, how are you going to water your plants? Now mine is quite a ways down away from the kitchen. I have to go ahead and carry water into here to water everything, usually like a couple times a week. Especially as they get larger, they'll require more water. So I have this 1 gallon watering can from Temu. I really, really like it because it has a long spout that's narrow, so it makes it a whole lot easier to control where the water's going and how much is coming out of it. I was trying to use just an orange juice container. Yeah, that was like, I was getting flooded plants and a lot of algae growth. This has made it a whole lot easier. So you need to figure out how you're going to get water into your grow room. If you don't have a sink nearby, say if you have a mudroom, maybe you just hook a hose up to that. It might be really great. But if you don't, then you're going to need some type of watering can. And a larger one is going to definitely make fewer trips. So if you're going to have electric lights, you've got to have electricity, which means you need to be near a power outlet of some sort. So I have an outlet behind this shelf that I have a power strip plugged into. I have all of these lights plugged into it. And the way I've set mine up is that I have each one of these shelves on its own plug. The Barina shop lights, you can plug actually 6 into, just daisy chain them, 6 together so that you have one outlet plugged in. But I want to be able to control these shelving units so I can turn each one off or on as it's needed. So I'm adding more plants, I could turn the shelf on. When the stuff has been moved outside, I can start turning them off. So I'm using less electricity, though these don't use a lot. They did not make any difference on the electric bill. But I do like to have them so that each shelf is independent of the others. With that, however, where we do need to have the lights on for 14 to 16 hours per day, I highly recommend putting them on a timer. It takes a lot of effort off of your part to come in and turn them all on, turn them all off, make sure that they are on for a set period of time. You get set up the timer, takes care of it, you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So highly recommend a timer. It is going to be your best friend for taking care of the lighting needs of the plants. Something that I'm going to be upgrading this year are my chains that hold the lights together. What I did was I got some of the hanging chains from the Dollar Tree. These are just hooks. So when I move the trays above them out to water them, they will roll and eventually they will come undone and crash to the plant below it. It's noisy, so it's very jarring, but it's not good for the plant either. So I'm going to be upgrading. I'm going to go over to Lowe's, probably look at the chain that they have there with the fasteners especially. So that I have something that's a lot more sturdy and it's not going to just fall apart. Again, I have the higher wattage, or I have the higher lumen lights. I don't have to move them as often. So having a more secure chain and hook is going to be just a blessing. So I'm not going to have to, but you do want to have something that's easy to adjust. But I need to look into that this year. But you will need some way to hang the lights. The Barina lights come with clips to hang the lights from, but they don't provide actual way to hang them. And I'm going with chain one because you can adjust it with the links. But also, I don't want to have anything, they're not hot, so I don't think like if you use twine or something like that, it would be a problem. But you do want the adjustability of the chain link. It makes it a whole lot better. So if you look at a seed packet, it will give you an ideal temperature range for the seedling to germinate. With some of those, it's going to be a little bit lower. Other ones, it's going to be higher. So if you're in a basement especially, this is going to be very important. If you're in a cooler location, you really want to use a heat mat for anything that is, requires a higher temperature. This room is set around to the upper 60s, so it's pretty good, but I will be using a heat mat for my pepper germination just because they do require a higher level of heat to get started. They will eventually germinate on their own, but it could take twice as long. So I'm going to add a heat mat to my peppers, so definitely recommend that. Now they have ones that are 10 inches by about 20 inches, which would do a 10 by 20 tray by itself, or you could get a 4-foot one that's by 10 inches, which will cover the entire shelf. Haven't done that yet, but I'm thinking about it, looking around at Amazon and Temu to see what I can get that's a decent price. But definitely something that you would want to do, especially if you're doing warm season crops that need a higher germination temperature. The other upgrade I made to the grow room this year, as if you can see behind me, I actually have reflective mylar film behind both bookcases, and I have a clothes rack, a clothes hanging rack that I put over here on the outside that I wrap another piece of mylar around the outer portion of it. What that does is it helps to keep the photon light particles in this area. So once that is up, the rest of the room is darker, which is good, but also it reflects a lot of those light particles back to the plant. So it's improving the efficiency even more of the light that you have running. So I highly recommend it. They do have grow tents, which I looked at, but I would need one that's about 8 feet by 4 feet, which would take way too much space in this room. I don't have that to give it to it. I only needed maybe about 6 feet by 3 feet. But so I decided to go this way. It was also, those grow tents are like $200. I spent I spent $9 on 6 pieces of the mylar film. I'm only using 3. So I've got another year at least. And so far, I'm thinking the ones behind these probably won't have any issues ever. The one I'm wrapping around with opening up every day, a couple times a day to check on things, I may need to replace that. But I've got, for $9, several years of mylar reflectivity available. And the clothes rack was about $30. So for about $40 total, I have my own DIY grow tent. Definitely worth it. Been very happy with it so far. So let me talk about what I have set up here and how much I spent on my units. So I have 2 of these 4-foot water shelving units. They're 18 inches deep by 82 inches tall. They have 6 shelves each. I have set it up so that each one of them has 4 grow light shelves with 2 of the Barina lights each. And then it gives me 2 additional storage shelves to use. The whole unit will hold 2,100 pounds, so we're nowhere near that. The lights I have, again, are Barina, 5,000 lumen, 6,500 Kelvin. Highly, highly recommend that. They're not listed as full spectrum, but I have plenty of tomatoes and peppers fruiting up here. I started these in October. They have been indoors their entire lives. I will start hardening them off come April and put them outside. But for now, I've got tons and tons of tomatoes and peppers growing right now. So as far as the cost for what I have here, $100 per shelving unit, about $80 to $85 per set of 6 lights. I have 3 sets. I have 2 lights in reserve that I'm not currently using, but $85 a piece. So if you go with 1 shelving unit and 1 set of lights, which would give you 3 shelves set up for grow lights. It's about $185. If you consider the lights, I figured out last year when I got these, they would be good for about 10 years. So as the lights age, they produce less light photons that get to the plants. So I'll probably need to replace these in about 10 years. It'll be about 8 years now. You break that down into 10 years, that's only $18 per year. You can't buy starts at the store for that little bit. And with this option, with starting your own seeds, you have the opportunity to buy so many varieties of plants. There's over 10,000 varieties of tomatoes. There's over 600 varieties of peppers, not to mention all the other things. So you can get a lot of varieties. You can play around with a lot of different things that you can't find locally at your big box stores or even your nurseries. So it's highly recommended. So my total in for 8 shelving units set up with 2 lights each and 2 shelving units was about $440. If you spread that out over a 10-year period before I need to replace these lights again, that's $44 investment per year. I can't go get, that. If you consider if you get 10 plants for $6 a piece at the garden center, that's $60. So I would have 10 plants for the cost of my units per year, and I've got hundreds of plants already growing, and we're not into the main season yet. I haven't started peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, or all the warmer season flowers that don't need as much time. So I've already got hundreds of plants set up and growing here. So it is well worth the investment, both with the variety that you can grow yourself and just the overall lower cost as time progresses. A little bit of upfront investment, but it is well worth it. If you're not a crazy gardener like me and you don't want to start as many things, you can go smaller. You can get a smaller bookcase, you can get smaller lights. They are cheaper if you get a smaller set. And you don't have to have 8 shelves. So there's a lot of options. So I will link a variety of different things, what I have as well as other ones I would recommend, which would be similar to what I have for you to consider. So just to summarize everything, there are a lot of different varieties of shelving units you can get, sizes you can get to fit the space. So again, consider your space, where it's going to be, how much space you actually have, how much you want to spend on it, how many lights and shelves do you really, really need? Do you need 8 or do you just need 3? Because it will bring your cost way, way down. But the shelving unit itself will probably last for as long as I would ever need it. It's really, really high quality. The lights will be 10 years, so I won't have to reinvest in those for another 10 years. At that point, I would only have to invest in new lights. So it is really, it's a no-brainer to go ahead and get a grow light station set up if you've got the space for it. Anyway, like I said, I've got hundreds of plants already started, and I'm going to be getting a lot more, so these will be very full come the next few weeks. If you're interested in what I'm growing this year, check out this video, and until the next time, I hope you have a very wonderful day. Happy gardening.